Well, hello everybody. I hope that you are having a good day. It is Tuesday, October the 31st. Happy Reformation Day. Um, I don't get the greeting Happy Halloween. Makes no sense to me. And that's not like being for or against Halloween. It's just I just don't get it. But if we're celebrating sort of thing, just don't know what Halloween is really a celebration of. Um, Whatever. I'm not sure whether I want to have a conversation about that. Really. Ah, I hope you're doing good. Sorry for being about 32 minutes late. There are reasons for these things. Almost always. Um, almost always. There are reasons. We're figuring some stuff out, and there'll be changes to our schedule. I suspect our Tuesday lives might go to, I don't know, I'm guessing it might be around like 6 or no, that can't work. Whatever. I got to figure it out. This time is really hard for me to make it to on Tuesdays. So we'll make some stuff around. No, sorry to disappoint you, Sop, all day. But not going to wear that live. Thanks for hitting the like button. Today is a call-in show, so I'm going to turn on our... Bam, it's on. Ready to go. And then we're going to drop the eCam link just in case anybody wants to call in via eCam instead of Discord. You're more than welcome to do that as well. It's up there. We're going to talk. We're going to have a conversation, as the title suggests. We're going to discuss various things. So, cheers. If you're new here, say hello. Definitely say hello if you're new here. One of these days, I'm going to go live from... How would I be able to control that? The other set. But I'm still setting up the other set. I'm working on getting a table soon that I can also work on. But it's in the process, folks. Pinned. Well, hello. Is that the actual Christian prince, or are you just using his name as a... Hey, what's up, Cody? How you doing, man? Somebody in my comment section recently said, thinking about going to a different channel. There's too much quiet on this channel. Well, that's probably true. Using the name. Thanks. So, folks, what are you guys doing on this very interesting day? I'm opening up my Bible software, some other stuff, just in case you guys have some biblical questions. We need to pull it up, man. Hey, Cody, did you ever fix or go on the Patreon and see my messages that I was sending to you? If you haven't, I suggest you go and revisit your Patreon and update your email or something like that. I don't know. Hello, Lily. I am doing well. How you doing? How you doing? Lily, we're dual broadcasting on YouTube and Twitch, just to give you a heads up. There's a little delay, correct. There's also a delay in me. We got our mods in the house. What's up? What's up, David? How you doing, brother? Yeah, do so. Hmm. Hey, look at that. We got Twitch folks joining us. What's up, Twitch folks? Sean never disappoints. What's up, Sean?
Hello.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on. With the last time, I got a bit mad. Sorry about that.
Did it? That's okay. That's fine, man. We're having a fun conversation.
Yeah, bad things happening in the world, so you get a bit mad, you know.
I got a Twitch user asking me, can I make some art for you? Why is my question, Lily. What do you say? Yeah, that's what I say. Why would you want to
Is it
make art
free?
for me? Is it free? That's a good question. Sean says, is it free? So he thinks about money. This is the difference between me and Sean. He thinks about the financial aspects, and I'm trying to see why people do things for whatever purposes. That's okay. How are the wife and kids? Wife and kids are doing just fine. Thank you for asking, David. Waiting for Jerome to call in. Jerome did say he was going to call in, right? Like he said he was going to. Yeah, that's true. But it might not need to be a private conversation as, yeah, where's the body armor? I never said I was going to wear body armor on live.
Yeah, he said that on Pine Creek. It was quite scary.
I heard that conversation. Yeah, we'll keep
Yeah, I
that
was like,
there.
what?
So, Sean, what do you want to talk about, man?
I was thinking about like Israel and like religion. So, like, does the Bible say, like, in Revelations? I think I read the Revelations a bit. I didn't remember much about it, but it says that the end of the world will happen in Israel. Is that right? Will start in
Um,
Israel.
sure, that is a view. Yes, there's a view that says, I'm blurry. Come on. There's a view of end times and an interpretation of the Book of Revelation that has Israel as a central point to the way things are going to finish.
And what's the other view?
There's three other views. It's not another view. There's three other views of that. And the other three don't necessarily have Israel, current Israel, modern Israel, as their focal point in regards to end times. I'll just put it that way. But the one you're probably most familiar with and probably seen a lot of videos about and people speaking about is what you're referring to, correct?
And is that the main view?
That's a very good question. It's the most popular view of the last 150 years, I would say. I'm not sure whether I would say it's the main view throughout Christian history, because there's been different views during different time periods that have been more popular.
About
and
where it's going to start.
or how it's going to end, not necessarily where it's going to start.
Can you give me examples?
So yeah, like the view that you're referring to has essentially the typical narrative goes that there's going to be a figure who's going to bring about peace between peace within the I want to say Middle East, but I'll just keep it to Israel. With the rebuilding of a third and final temple for the Jewish people. This individual is going to declare himself to be a Messiah. He's going to be a false Messiah, and what is also commonly referred to as an Antichrist, and is going to bring about the destruction of quite a bit of the Jewish people, plus people who resist, and is going to try to develop a totalitarian government on the planet. So
Yeah, and I heard that. Yeah, and I heard that the Muslims and the Jews have end times that start in Israel. So the Jews are pretty unlucky there. I heard.
I'm
I
not
think.
sure. I wouldn't be familiar with what the Jewish view of end times would be, other than that the Messiah is going to come back, and
All right.
bring about or sorry, not come back, but come in their view, and bring about a messianic age, which is an age of peace or whatever like that. The Islamic view has to do, well, I'm least familiar with. Let me put it that way, so I don't want to comment on that.
Yeah, I heard it was going to start Israel or something. I was talking to a Muslim there.
Yeah,
I mean,
would.
no, Jerusalem.
That's
Sorry,
yeah,
Jerusalem.
yeah. That's very interesting. That would be a very interesting perspective.
So is that why they're all fighting about the Dome of the Rock there, the mosque and
Well,
the?
the current fighting is from the Palestinian perspective, I guess, is about not necessarily the Dome of the Rock, but the Al Aqsa Mosque, which is a different mosque there, other than the Dome of the Rock.
Oh yeah, sorry, the Al Aqsa, and that's on top of the old Jewish temple there,
Well,
Solomon's
it's on the
temple or
Temple
something.
Mount. The Al Aqsa Mosque is on the Temple Mount, but the Dome of the Rock probably seems to be the thing that is on top of the old temple.
And they're both Muslim.
Sorry, what are Muslim? The two
Sorry,
mosques.
I'm confused with the.
Here, I'll
I'm
show you.
confused with the Dome of the Rock and Alaska. Are they both
Both,
Muslim?
yes, they are.
And they're both Jewish sacred sites.
It's the same site, but it has two
All
structures
right.
on there. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
the one is where the Jews bop their head on, and then the Muslims are on top there with their
the
mosque.
Wailing Wall. That's what it's called.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that is where all the end times stuff. So the Jews want to build their last temple on where the mosque is.
Correct. Yeah.
So do you think the current Jews, the conservative Jews now want to destroy that mosque? Like if they kick out all the Palestinians, they'll rebuild
Yeah,
the temple
that's
there.
a very interesting question because from my studies and understanding, they don't really know exactly where the temple's supposed to go. Some people have suggested it's right next to the Dome of the Rock. Some people have suggested that it's exactly on it. So I don't know. I don't know whether they would tear down or build one attached to it or something. I don't know.
Because the Muslims won't like that anyway, that's for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean,
They, it-
it's one of the most holiest sites in Islam. Clearly, they're not going to like it if people tore it down.
so if the conservative Jews had their way, would they destroy that and then build a temple and then kick out all the
I don't want to.
Muslims? But
Yeah,
that
I
would
don't want to
cause World
speak
War
on their
Three, I'd say.
behalf. I don't want to speak on what their behalf on, as to what they would or would not do. I have no idea. Is it a possibility? Of
Yeah,
course, it's a
well,
possibility.
I think the conservative Jews want to kick out the
Let me
majority
tell
of
you. Let me tell
Palestinians
you
that
this.
are
Let me
there.
put it this way: if conservative Jews tore down the Dome of the Rock, um, the whole world would be against them because it wouldn't necessarily it wouldn't be a Jewish versus Palestinian issue. It would definitely be a Jewish versus Islam issue because now you're not tearing down something that belongs to Palestinians, but you're tearing something down that belongs to all Muslims, and that's a big problem. So I
So
don't
they might
think
never be
they
able.
would. Yeah, I don't think that's a.
I don't think they might build a temple next to it or something.
Well, some people have suggested that the actual location isn't right next to it, but
They
again,
they,
I'm not an
they
archaeologist. I
could
don't
build
know.
the Jewish temple next to the.
Yeah, I mean that's if that's where it
Yo.
goes. They just need to know exactly where
And
the
does that mean
location
when they
is.
built it that the Messiah is supposed to come back or something?
In their mindset, I don't know.
Wait, is the Messiah supposed to come back and then they build it, or is it the other way around?
I don't know what their end times views are.
Wait, the Jew. Oh man, I need to find out what the Jews think. So the Jews think that the Messiah is going to come back and then they build a temple, or they build a temple and then Messiah comes back. That's very important.
As far as I understand, it could be they build it and then the Messiah comes.
Oh great, this could literally start World War Three. For as an atheist,
Yeah.
this religious thing.
I actually think we're in World War III right now, but the world hasn't woken up yet. I pay
You know,
attention.
as an atheist, this is really mad. As a human race, we have.
What, that people have beliefs and they fight?
As an atheist, I
Wait.
think.
As an atheist, you're shocked that people have beliefs and they fight over their beliefs?
Yeah, you're right. No, I shouldn't be shocked, but I'm just saying the beliefs are fake, and we're fighting over something that's not
Well,
real,
people are
which is
always going to
very.
fight over their deepest convictions.
Yeah, I mean, we did fight for dumber things before, like communism was probably a stupid
Well,
idea, and we fought for
we
that.
can thank the atheists for that one.
Yeah. So it's your turn now, religious people. Show us what you got.
Religious people have been fighting all sorts of funny stuff. Um, yeah, for me, you can judge these things biblically, and I can very clear. Even if Christians get involved, I think I can use the Bible to say this is wrong, and here's where we stand on these issues. But quite often, these sorts of things get politicized in all sorts of funny ways, and nuance, the person that becomes the individual that nuances them. Nobody really
Well,
listens to very
you know
much.
what the famous saying, everything is political. Well, that's a famous saying, everything you do in life is political. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's that could be
that
wrong.
seems true.
Yeah. So
Keanu
yeah.
agrees with me that World War III has started as well.
All the atheists now are like, flip. Dang
No,
it.
look, here's the thing. Whenever you study history, um, let's just look at World War II. Did all these countries start fighting each other all of a sudden? Like immediately overnight, everybody's fighting each other? No. Countries got pulled into the war for various reasons. The British weren't in the war. Germany was attacking all sorts of countries. Right? It was going after Poland and Austria, and the Brits weren't involved in the war. The French weren't involved in the war. It wasn't until they were attacked. The Americans weren't in the war for a very long time in regards to World War II. Well, actively military conflicts. They were involved in it by selling weapons and so on and so forth. Till till Japan attacked the United States, and then they got involved in the war. Like when you actually look at the historical data, it's very like, so when did World War II start? Well, for who? For the Austrians, for the Polish, for the Russians, for the British, for the American, like for who? And that's the reality of studying history. It becomes a bit more complicated, and things they don't just happen at once. And we shouldn't be naive to sit there and see and you know what? I'm gonna find a little video and show you guys, and just for you guys to know how crazy the dictator of Turkey is. And I've been saying this
No, but
guy's
I
a
think
nutcase for such a long time because he's been directly involved in stuff that has had to do with Armenia, and people don't seem to
yeah,
care much or pay
and he
attention.
follows Islam. A
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
his
He's a
things he
he's a
does,
he's he's
he
a
tries
he's
to
a
copy Islam.
ultra. I'll prove to you. He's an ultra nationalistic radical,
Muslim.
not just Muslim.
Yeah, he tries to copy the Quran.
Let me
Sorry,
see if this is.
Jesus.
Let me see if this has subtitles. Sorry, his speech. Speech. Um, he actually warned the West. He basically said, "You guys are." He's like, well, of course he's going to warn the West, and he's saying you guys are starting another Crusader versus Islamic war. Now, is that true? It always gets uh, advertised as this kind of a religious thing. It's like the war is not the West is not Christian. They're not attacking Muslims, but this guy's using crusade language. Okay, and the events matter quite a bit as to what he's saying. Let me see. That's not what I want. Because it's for the 100-year anniversary of the Turkish nation that he did this thing in, and then it was also a slash pro-Palestinian rally in this country. Kardeşlerini kucaklıyor. You guys can hear this. Okay, this is. I don't know if I can have you on at the same time as doing this. Hang on 1 second.
Press play.
Okay, you don't need to be seen. Okay, can you hear this? Well, you got to kind of read it because you can't understand
No.
what he's saying. He's speaking Turkish. But let's go.
Oh yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to read the subtitles. We'll stop it and then we'll read the subtitles, folks. So here's what to pay attention. This is the 100th-year anniversary for the Turkish nation, okay? The modern Turkish nation. It's also a pro-Palestinian rally, as you can see all the Palestinian flags. And pay attention to the rhetoric because Armenia is going to come up in this conversation. And look at the amount of people that are there in support of this.
İstanbulluya zulme karşı duruşu İsrail'in Filistin'de katlettiği mazlumların
So how hey Israel, how did you come here? How did you enter here? But remember that Jerusalem and Israel was under Ottoman Turkish rule for 500 years. And last year, I believe, if not earlier this year, this same man claimed that Jerusalem will once again be theirs.
İsrail sen buralara nasıl geldin? Nasıl girdin? Sen bir işgalcisin.
You are an occupier. You are an organization, essentially saying you're not a country. The Turkish people know this. The same Turkish government has for the last, I don't know how many years, sat and governed on the blood of Armenians that they committed genocide against. And still to this day won't recognize. And they're talking about other people being occupiers.
Sen bir örgütsün. Dolayısıyla Türk milleti bunu biliyor. İsrail.
Israel, we will declare you as a war criminal to the world.
Biz de seni savaş suçlusu olarak dünyaya ilan edeceğiz. Gazze'de savunma değil.
What is being done in Gaza is not defense, but an open and despicable
Açık ve
massacre.
alçak bir katliam yürütülme.
This is the same guy that supported the Azerbaijani government for massacring Armenians and then committing ethnic cleansing against 120,000 Armenians, denying that they sent Turkish soldiers to fight in 2020. And then in this speech, he actually goes on to say how there was Turkish, we were there, he says, in Karabakh.
Gazze halkının sergilediği vakur, kararlı ve inançlı duruş, tarihe şanlı bir direniş destanı olarak yazılacaktır.
Oh, I guess, these guys didn't want to show that clip. But it's definitely part of that entire conversation he has. I wish the 40 minutes.
Yeah, I heard that. What's his name? Apostate Prophet said that there was the big Hamas leader said that we need to do jihad against the Jews or something. That's a big Muslim leader saying.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that they would use language of jihad. That's clear as day. But
and in the Quran it says they'll kill the Jews in the end times. In the Quran, I think.
Okay, yeah. Again, that's not my area of expertise, so I can comment on it too much. What I would say is that these things, I made a claim that I think we are already in World War III. The reason why is because I think these things are all interconnected. So if you see how the sides are lining up together, Turkey's growing closeness with Russia, and the Russians, the West's continuous support of Ukraine in that kind of fight. I've mentioned this before as well, but before World War I, there's a thing called World War Zero that a lot of people don't talk about, and that has to do with actually a Turkic and it's also called the Crimean War, by the way. It was a war fought over Crimea, which is what Russia took over in the mid 2010s, and what the Ukrainians and the Russians have been fighting over. These things are connected. The fact that the Russians didn't do much to aid the Armenians in that conflict against the Azeris is connected to this. The fact it's weird alliances, and how they're going to line up is going to be beats me. I don't know. I can't comment on that very much. But the world is involved in multiple wars against each other right now, and I would classify that as a world war. Who is funding and who is giving the arms to the Ukrainians to fight the Russians? Well, Europe, the United States. That's a good amount of the world. The Russians are buying weapons from the Chinese and the Iranians. The Israelis are now fighting, for the time being, the Gazans or / Palestinians. That could very easily, and the Palestinians and Gazans are backed by Iran. And so this thing is all interconnected in a very, very meticulous, weird web that we've gotten ourselves into. And yeah, I mean, it could get a lot more bloodier. It could get a lot worse. A lot worse than it is now. If people aren't sane and rational. But I don't have much of I'm not very optimistic at the rationality of our political leaders currently, because they keep making dumb decisions. So, but the world is in a war. Some of us just happen to be separated from it and aren't impacted by it. Some of us are impacted by it in various ways. And that's very messed up.
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine is mainly for land and politics and money. I think the war in Israel is mainly to do with religion, I think, and race. Religion and race and a bit of land, to be fair.
Oh, it's about land. It's very
But
clearly
it's
about
tied
land.
to
Yeah, the question.
the Bible, the religion.
So it's about land, but see, it's funny, man, because I want to say you guys, and because I would separate myself from that group. But look, you're in Wales, correct? No, Ireland.
Yeah.
Why did I say Wales? You're in Ireland. The Irish have fought the English quite a bit throughout history. So have the Scots and so on. And that's predominantly been over land. There has been, clearly in Ireland itself, there has been conflicts between religious conflict, Protestants versus Catholics. But those things aren't necessarily like tied into lands and dwelling places, where these other conflicts are. So things are seen as like Christian lands. They're seen as Muslim lands. So it's very difficult, is what I'm trying to say, to disconnect the religion and the religious identities versus the identities of the people. So you could be an atheist. Let me put it this way. If you were Armenian, right, Sean, and an atheist, from the Muslim perspective, you'd still be seen as a Christian because you were Armenian.
Oh yeah, they'll just lump you all together, and like
Correct.
if Armenia was mainly atheist, they'll still probably want to fight you because they want to spread their Islam
and
jihad
you'd
or
still
something.
be seen as a Christian. So the same thing would be said amongst some folks, I think, more of an ignorant sort, when it comes to say Turks. People will say, "Oh, they're Muslims," and they go, "Well, no, that's not a Muslim Turk. That's a Christian Turk or something like that." And people have a hard time understanding that.
But in Israel, it's a lot to do with religion. Like that's the whole reason why the Jews went there in the first place, is because in the Bible, in the Old Testament, it's their home place. And
well, it could also be argued. No, not necessarily. I wouldn't just say it's in the Bible, because people are looking at that as historically as well. So
Torah
When,
or something.
when were the Jews kicked out of that land? Well, 2,000 years ago,
When the
let's just
Muslims
say.
came, or
Not
did they
really.
leave
So
voluntarily?
The Romans kicked them out of the land, right? They exiled them all. And people still remained. I mean, there's still Jewish presence in that land for such a long time. And then, so then it was in the hands of the Muslims after the Romans, and then it was hands of the Crusaders. It went back and forth. And the Muslims, again, this is kind of the pro-Israel argument, is that even though Muslims owned it, it was under the caliphates, it was under Ottoman rule, but it was never its own country called Palestine. Such a thing did not exist. The land was called Palestine. That's clear as day, but there's reasons, all sorts of reasons why it was called Palestine. The Romans called it Palestine, sort of to go against the Jewish populace because they continuously wanted their own freedom and X, Y, and Z. And then the British took it over and then tried to somehow, I don't know, fix the situation by saying, well, we're giving this land to the Jews for them to establish their own state called Israel. But there was people living there, and then they came up with this policy to solve that, which is what's been called a two-state solution, which very clearly hasn't worked out for anyone. And that's just the reality of the mess that we're in. So
I mean,
let me comment on some.
have the Jews? I mean, one solution would have been, in 1948. Why didn't the Jews just not like live with the Muslims? I guess the Muslims didn't want them to be there. I guess when there was loads of Jews that came, all the property was owned by the Muslims, so the Jews couldn't get any land, so they had to kick them out. But maybe they could have done like well, yeah, they were trying to do a two-state solution, but the Muslims didn't agree with that, and then they had their war, and then the Jews won.
Correct. I mean,
So
what happens when you fight a war and you
basically,
lose?
do the Muslims still want to kick them out fully? Like, do most Muslims in Palestine want to kick all the Jews out, or they just want to live together with the Jews?
It's very difficult.
Or just Hamas?
It's very difficult to judge that, because like I have friends that are Palestinian, and they're Christians, and they wouldn't have issues living with Jews. So there's probably Muslims there that, again, there are Muslims that live in Jerusalem. There are Muslims that live within Israel, X, Y, and like out, not in like the West Bank and Gaza and stuff like that. You can't just ask questions of that general sort of sense, right? But then there's serious questions about, like, are they welcome? Are they allowed? Can they have full citizenship? Can they do whatever they want to do? Those are the sorts of questions that come up. Not saying that they aren't. This is a very, very complicated matter. And I said the same thing when the Ukraine. I've said a lot of this stuff publicly, man. But when the Ukraine-Russia war was going on and people were asking me questions like the one that my good friend Grigor's asking, he said, do you have a side you're on when it comes to the Israel-Palestine thing? It's like people asked me the same question when it came to Russia and Ukraine. And I said, you guys don't know the kind of mess this is. Who are the Ukrainians and who are the Russians? That's a very good question to start with. The Ukrainians claim to be the forefathers of the Russians. The first Ukrainian empire is called Kievan Rus. And so there's all sorts of conflicts that have happened between these people and who owns what land and what's going on there. I'd say the same thing when it comes to the Armenia/Turkey conflicts. And there's reasons why people get involved in certain things and don't get involved in other things. Some of it's religious, some of it's just land, some of it's history, some of it's identity, some of it's mutual hatred or whatever like that. It's just extremely complicated. So I don't think I have to take a side there. I prefer to be on the side of Jesus. Grigor,
So what do you think what do you think will be the end game for Israel? What do you think will happen if this war ends in Israel?
At this point, I don't think this war will end without Israel completely dominating and taking control of Gaza. And I
And what
think
will happen
their
to
talking
the people
points and
there?
their arguments would be, hey, we told you guys can function autonomously. We gave you that kind of a freedom. And then you guys elected Hamas to be your leader, which is in Gaza. In the West Bank, the governing authority is called the Palestinian Authority. And you guys chose wrong, and you guys chose a terrorist organization to lead you, and essentially we're not going to allow for that, considering what they just did. The sad reality is that these guys have been dropping bombs. I think last I saw, there were 6,000 or 7,000 people that have died on the Palestinian side. That's a lot of people, man. And most likely, most of those people are innocent people. Now, how they died, what Hamas was doing, did they put their rockets in innocent civilian areas? Like, I get those conversations before somebody gets on there and tells me, but they're doing this and that. Correct, yes. But the reality is that people have died, and our hearts should break for those sorts of situations. I don't take sides on this stuff because I don't think neither of those people actually are thinking Christianly. I don't think they have those kinds of considerations. And they have their own political reasons and all that.
And do you think the Americans are supporting Israel mainly for geopolitical or religious reasons, or is it both?
Both. I would say it's both. There's a predominant ideology in America, and especially amongst American evangelicals, that gets them to a place where they feel like they have to support Israel.
Because
But it's also geopolitical.
In a liberal atheist view, I'd say they'll be more pro-Palestine, but they'll be ignorant of the extreme Muslim view. So they'll be pro-Palestine, but then they'll be like, oh yeah, Hamas, yeah, you're fine. But no, I'd say a lot of atheists, educated ones, even would know that there's extreme sides on both sides, and that in my ideal world, I'd say the Palestinians will have to compromise with the Jews and try and live together. I think the wall in Gaza and not letting any freedom in Gaza is a bit over too much. So the Jews will have to give them more freedom, and the Muslims will have to, the Palestinians will have to give Israel the right to exist, basically. But they'll have to live more together. So basically, there'll be an increase in Muslim population in Israel, and probably the Jews don't like that because then they won't have the power, and they won't be able to destroy the mosque.
Yeah, again, I don't want to think that they have an intent on destroying the mosque or something like that. But yeah, I mean, those are legitimate questions as to what that kind of a system would look like. Who would be representing who within the Israeli parliament, the governing house? Could a Muslim be prime minister of Israel? That's a really good question to ask, right? So it's a very complicated matter. I don't know. I don't have answers to most of these questions.
And what's the population of atheists in Israel? I think it's quite high. It's like 30% or 20%.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And it's probably growing. I think a lot of Jews are not becoming. Well, the Orthodox Jews are growing, but the other Jews are probably not as religious as before, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know what the data is in regards to that. Just a quick comment. They said Romans kicked out the Jews. Yeah, they committed massacre against them in 70 AD, and then they also depopulated the land in the 130s, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, they kicked them out. They didn't just subjugate them; they already had them subjugated way before this. But continuous fighting, continuous revolutions caused them to kick them out, and so they were essentially exiled.
And did the Muslims kick the Jews out from Palestine during the Ottoman Empire, or did they let them have jizya or something?
They probably had them had the jizya to a certain extent. There was in the Middle Ages, there's very clear references to Jewish people living in those lands. There's Muslims, Christians, and Jews living in the land of Palestine, Israel, whoever was controlling it, right? Because there's a portion of history where portions of this land and the world are actually not governments in the way we think about them. They're what we call kingdoms. So you had, for example, you had the king of Jerusalem, right? You had kings of territories rather than nations per se. The French were ruling Jerusalem for a very long time. There was a French king over. There was a French Crusader king over Jerusalem, and so, how far do you go back on some of this stuff? That's
And I
a
heard
serious question
Muslims
to ask.
say, like critiques of Israel say that a lot of, or is it true that Ashkenazi Jews are not real Jews? They're from
It's pronounced
Kazakhstan,
Ashkenazi. It's pronounced Ashkenazi
Ashkenazi,
Jews. Yeah,
and
or
they like
Ashkenazi.
converted, like
Well, it doesn't
they
matter, does
converted
it?
500 years ago.
But it doesn't matter, even if they did. Judaism is not predominantly, when you look at the Jewish people,
Race,
it's more of a religious identity.
race too.
Yeah, as opposed to biological stuff. Like Judaism actually allows for that. So why have they been shipping in? Let me just put it this way: Why have the Zionists and in Israel they have been shipping in Ethiopian Jews into Israel? There are Ethiopian Jews that live in Israel. There's a whole
and the
portion
black
of the land
Hebrew
where the
Israelites.
people are black because they're Jews. That's
The
their
black
land.
Hebrew Israelites.
Not black Hebrew Israelites. These people are not black Hebrew Israelites. They're Ethiopian Jews. They've been around for a very, very long time. So
No, but it's tricky with Judaism because I heard it's quite hard to convert to Judaism. So that's why people get like angry at Jews because you can't convert to Judaism or something. It's quite a special club. The Jews are
no, you can
special. You know what
convert
I
to
mean?
Judaism. You just need to follow Moses and the Torah and get circumcised.
Oh, right. I thought it was harder than that. You have to. So it's easier than I thought it was.
Well, the question
Just
is how
get
hard is
circumcised.
following the Torah, not necessarily how far is it making the decision.
Oh, is that where they have like all these weird laws where like electronics and like food
Well,
and
yeah,
all
I'm
that
just
stuff?
they have their own laws. That it's its own religious system. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to comment on those.
Yeah. The ultra orthodox follow those weird laws.
What the point is that that argument that people are bringing up, that these are Ashkenazi Jews and stuff like that, it's a meaningless argument. It's pointless.
Why?
Because Judaism doesn't function that way. It's not a part of the way the religious system is set up.
But I thought it was harder to be a Jew because I thought Jews, like my mother wanted to be a Jew and she couldn't.
Why?
I heard that Judaism is spread by the mother. If the mother is Jew, and you can have a half family Jew, you're
Unless they've
considered
stopped
Jew.
accepting people who convert into their religion, and people can convert into their religion, which would be new news to me. And I would actually say that it's against the Old Testament that they say they believe in. Like, you have to get
I
married
could be
to
wrong. I
a
have
Jew
to
or
ask
something.
ChatGPT there. I'll ask ChatGPT there
Your research assistant.
while I talk to you.
Hey, we do have a couple of people on the line over here with Discord. So, guys, if you guys want to jump into the conversation, you're more than welcome to. Okay, I think they just want to listen.
Yeah, it's a controversial subject, Judaism.
Just 1 second here. He said, Arthur, are you referring to Christian nationalists that use the phrase Judeo-Christian all the time? I think that's an oversimplification and overgeneralization. So I specifically refer to a certain theological view amongst what I said, Protestant evangelicals that feel that they have a need or a calling, or it's obligatory by scripture for them to support the state of Israel. What they are, where they come from, and it seems like it was a predominant view that got developed in England and then got kind of exported into the United States at one point. Late 1800s, I think, British evangelicals were doing this. Is there a test you can do to see if someone's a Jew? What kind of questions are you guys asking? Moving on. Did some of the people on Discord try to say something and we cut them off?
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, Arthur, how's it going?
Pretty well. How are you doing?
Good, I'm good. I just wanted to ask some things. I was listening, and it sounded like you guys were defending Palestine. Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're wrong.
Okay. Can I ask you
say
some
what you were going to
questions
say.
about
Say what you're going to say.
So, do you know about the Iron Dome
Yes.
and how many rockets it's been deflecting?
I don't know how many rockets it deflects, but it's quite a bit. I have Armenian friends that are in Israel that actually one of them regularly reports what's going on in Israel on YouTube. And she'll be like in front of the camera. She's like, "Oh, there's rockets coming in right now."
Yeah, no. So if something like that happens in other countries, do you think they wouldn't take military action?
Of course they would, and they'd be justified in doing so.
Right. So I think, I mean, this might be a little bit conspiratorial, but I think Israel let their guard down so that they can have, because they've been deflecting missiles for, I mean, I don't know for how many years. But I think they're kind of tired of it, and they let their guard down so they have justification to fight back.
Maybe so. I don't know. It's a really nasty situation. And there's parts of me that resonates with and agrees with self-governance for any group of people who decide to live a certain way. And this could be whether for the Palestinians or for the Jews. Self-governance, I think, is a human right. And I would say this because I think Armenians should have the right to govern themselves on their ancestral territories that they've just been kicked out of. So I would have to be consistent with that. The issue is, right, so you go, hey, have self-governance, and then the government you elect does certain things where they instigate war with another nation, and then that nation comes and takes over your territory, your nation, whatever. Do they have a right to do that? Sure. Are there rules of engagement and war? There should be, yeah. There's ethical ways to fight war. That should be very obviously clear to everyone. What complicates the matter is in regards to worldview and religion and how you conduct these things and the way you do it. I'll give you an example that is that is away from this, but it really communicates this point. So during World War II, when the United States dropped atomic bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they dropped leaflets all over Japan saying, leave major cities and go into rural areas because we're going to bomb some cities. Well, one of the things that maybe they didn't account for was the Japanese worldview. And the Japanese worldview and the government essentially told their people, you're a coward if you leave. You have to stay and fight to the last man. So those major cities were heavily populated because of honor and shame culture in Japan. And so when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a lot more people died than would have been anticipated by Western powers, and the United States in this case. So it's this sort of stuff that people, I think, undervalue, don't pay attention to. Then there's like very obvious weird stuff. Like, for example, I think it's very weird that Israel tells that amount of people in Gaza City, I think, to evacuate and go to the south, like in a day. I think that is it's unfair. But it's also unfair when you get Hamas building tunnels underneath hospitals and putting rockets in schools, right? Like, that's unethical, and using human shields and various things of this sort. And again, I don't take sides in these sorts of stuff. And it's partly because I can take a side and still call out that side for wrongs they do. And try to be historically accurate and fair and all that stuff.
What do you think Jesus would have done in this problem? He would have said, "You can smack me, but I won't fight you back." Thing.
That's not necessarily true, because
you'd follow the Old Testament, eye for an eye.
Well, no, it's not an eye for an eye. There's different ethical standards for states and governments as to the way they approach situations, and individuals and the way they approach situations. And I think that's very clear in the day. Here's what I think Jesus would have done. Jesus would have told both the Jews and the Muslims to repent and believe onto him and become Christians. I can almost guarantee, not almost, I can guarantee you that that's exactly what he would have said to them.
But you know they wouldn't.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
There's
no, if he came,
Christians.
to be fair, if he came back, if he was actually there and he showed himself, yeah, they would all convert. But
I'm
in
not
a
sure
hypothetical...
I'm not sure whether they would all convert.
Well, they'd be all scared, like, if Jesus came, like, with his miracles and stuff.
Well, I think if Jesus came back at that point, it'll be too late, probably.
Oh, yeah, it'll be the end times, the Armageddon or something.
Sean, you know he was here, right? And he did all those miracles, and he raised a dead man to life. And they didn't want to listen to him; they wanted to kill him. I don't think it would make a difference, dude.
Oh yeah, that was a Jew.
The heart's the problem. It's not an intellectual thing. I don't think people deny God because, you know, even when you answer their intellectual problems. I don't know if you heard of Frank Turek. He does a lot of debates. Frank, whenever he gets to ask the question and he feels the questioner's hostile, he asks them, if Christianity was true, would you believe it? And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people who say no, that they wouldn't believe it. I think that clearly shows the heart problem.
Well, I would believe it, but I wouldn't say it's nice. I would fear God. Like, I would say God is not a great God, but I'll believe him. Like, do you know what I mean? That's what I would say.
Right, so it's the heart that's the issue. It's not an intellectual thing. I can answer all your intellectual problems, and you still wouldn't be a Christian at the end of the day.
Well, no, it's because I wouldn't agree with you factually. It's not my. There's no such thing as your heart in science. Your feelings don't come from your heart.
Your mind.
They come from your brain.
Philosophical concept. Your mind.
Yeah, but anyway, so the problem in Israel is mainly... Sorry. Yeah, you talk there.
Yeah, I think there's a lag, but go ahead. I thought you stopped talking. I'll stay quiet for like a few seconds after you finish.
All right. So if I were like a Jew, the president of Israel, I would say, okay, guys, yeah, we probably overkilled. You know the way in Judaism it says an eye for an eye? Well, we should have probably just killed like 1,200 or 300 Hamas. But the problem is the Hamas are not dead yet. So, but you know that if we kill all of Hamas, they'll just come back, you know, like cockroaches. So we basically have to do a long-term thing and say, okay, guys, we got to live with these Muslims But we have to tell them, okay, guys, you can't vote for Hamas. You can vote for another Muslim guy, but it can't be Hamas. But you're allowed to join Israel. You'll be allowed to become Jewish, and you'll get all the economic benefits of that. But you cannot vote for an extremist Muslim thing. That's, if I were a Jew, that's what I would say. Do you know what I mean? I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, maybe. I that's probably an oversimplification. I don't think that would
You know
probably
what they
solve
say?
much.
It's better to simplify it. In science, they say if you know the subject, you'd say it simply, and then people can understand.
Okay. We got DK in the Discord as well. Welcome in.
Hi, I have two topics whenever you're ready.
Go for it.
Sure. So one of them is just a thing on the history of the conflict that I don't know if you know a lot about the history of the area, so it's okay if you don't know, but I heard that, and I don't know that this solves anything, but I heard that at one point in history, Israel controlled the whole region, and the Palestinians were upset about that, and so they said, okay, fine, you can have some of the land back. Like they were originally going to have the whole land, and then they said, I don't. Yeah, they said, okay, you can have Gaza and you can have the West Bank. Is that?
I think I think that might have been after 67, 68, or 48, one of those two wars, where they not only took back that, they actually took the whole Sinai Peninsula that belonged to Egypt, and in their concessions with Egypt, they gave away a large portion of that land back. So they made concessions.
Because there was this idea. Yeah, well, and I don't. Again, I'm a little bit ignorant, but I'm trying to learn. There was this idea that that sometimes goes around that's like, well, Israel wants to wipe out all the Palestinians, like by just some kind of genocidal idea deep within. And I thought, well, that can't be true, because if that was the case, why would they give Palestinians land? Like they were trying to be like, sure, let's, make some compromises here. And I thought, well, if Israel really had some kind of hatred for Palestinians, they had a point in time where, well, basically they didn't have to do that. And yeah, so I don't know. And so I'm trying to get some opinions, and I'm not a history expert. So it's like, is that true or is that false? And I think you're sort of saying,
it seems like what you have there, that there's some truth to that. Look, I'll give you an example. So in regards to the religious sites in the West Bank, right? So Jerusalem, I think sometimes it's called East Jerusalem. Who controls it? Palestinians? As far as I understand, and I could be wrong here, but as far as I understand, the people who control it are the Jordanians. So why is it the Jordanians as opposed to the Palestinians, if I'm right? Well, because Jordan, for a certain period of time, owned that. Like as a country, we're talking about it as a country rather than like there's the people group living there. Again, this is a portion of the world where you got multiple people groups living in certain places that might never had been a country. That country might have never been theirs. So there's been Armenians living in Jerusalem since the 1100s, is what I've heard. But it could be that they've been there like post like 4th, 5th century. But we wouldn't say like, oh, so therefore this is Armenia or something, right? Like that'd be kind of strange.
Yeah. I have a friend whose parents are from Jordan, and so he was trying to educate me on some things. He's very pro-Palestinian and kind of one-state solution sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to learn things from here. I think there's just a massive amount of misinformation. And since I'm trying to learn, like, then I hear something and then I think, well, I need to ask someone else so that I don't go back to my friend and say, well, because this particular person, basically his view is Israel wants to genocide the Palestinian people. And I'm like, that seems
so
wild.
here's the sort of stuff we might want to think about, like official stuff or unofficial actions, or like, again, this is why this stuff needs to get nuanced. To stay away from this, I'll give you an example again of the Armenian side. It's funny, sometimes I resonate as an Armenian, sometimes I'll resonate with Palestinians, and then at other times I will resonate with the Israelis because of the complication. But here's an example I will give. With the Armenian conflict in regards to that territory called Nagorno-Karabakh recently, where they were all depopulated, the Azeri government's official position was that the Armenians are more than welcome to stay in that land and be integrated into Azeri society, which seems like a pretty decent proposal, right? Hey, we won this war. We think you guys are separatists. Even though let's just say I agree with them and they're even wrong on the historical stuff. Just if we go by like political means, there's a war fought, they won it, now they control it, and they're saying you can stay here and be integrated into our society. We'll give you all of you guys Azeri citizenships, X, Y, and Z. Cool. And then one of the first things they do is name one of the streets in the capital city after one of the perpetrators of the Armenian genocide. And then they're like, hey, come live here. So officially, here's the statement, you guys can live here. And then maybe people who are looking in from the outside, they can't tell this name from that name. They're like, whatever. Enver Pasha, whoever the heck Enver Pasha was. But those individuals that understand the story, right? And this is the example I've given to people. Let's just say the Nazis did some stuff and then told the Jews, hey, you guys can live on this land. We're allowing you to live on this land. You're more than welcome to live here and be citizens of our country, and then end up naming one of the streets like Himmler Street. Right? So there's a psychological aspect of what you're doing to the population, and that's not even counting how you're going to bother them, the way you're going to treat them, like if they're walking by the side of the road, you can. So as far as I know, in the West Bank, it's legal. It's legal for an Israeli soldier to detain any Palestinian or anyone, maybe for that matter, for about 3 hours. What my buddy
was saying was, he's like, you got to understand, Palestinians have, and I mean, he uses hyperboles, but he's like, you got to understand, Palestinians don't have any human rights compared to the Jewish people there, or Israelis.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the Israeli government and these people, this is where you're hearing the whole open air prison type of thing. And it's like, well, you got to understand, they don't have any rights. They can't leave, et cetera, et cetera. And so,
what breaks my heart more than anything on this conflict, like there's plenty of things that break my heart, is that there's quite a bit of Palestinian Christians who've been there for a very long time, who have been lumped in, like there's nowhere of safety for them. So who've lumped at points they get lumped in with the Muslims who are doing this, and they're against these terrorist acts and all that stuff, but they're losing their schools and homes and X, Y, and Z in the process of that. But they're also not accepted by the Palestinian Muslims because they're Christians, and so they get stuck in the middle. And it's whatever happens, it's bad for them. it's insanely
I don't think-
complicated. Like I don't know like what
Yeah,
other than the fact of like chopping it in the middle and going, you guys take this place and you guys take this place, and like be satisfied with it.
So what do you think is the end goal for Israel? Do you think they want to kick them all out, or just destroy Hamas and then stay there permanently, occupy Palestine and Gaza permanently, just never have Hamas again?
I can't comment on that, man. I don't know what the end goal of Israel is. Like, number one, I'm not that educated on Israeli politics. That's assuming like all the people in Israel agree with the governing authority as well. You have to realize that Netanyahu's government, which is more of a conservative government in the Israeli sense, and I don't know what that means, is not very popular in Israel even. So it's very difficult to comment on like what your average Israeli wants in that country versus what the government wants. By the way, this is true of any country. Any country. The United States sends a ridiculous amount of money to Ukraine. Does everybody in the US agree that the US should be supporting Ukraine in this matter? No, but they do it anyways. And
Well, I think the majority would agree with Ukraine aiding Ukraine.
You think a majority of people in the United States agree of sending funds to Ukraine?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Well, there's probably studies on that, polls on that.
If you didn't live in the U.S. and you saw the U.S. do some international political thing, you can't assume that, oh, look, all Americans want such and such. It's like, no. And so we don't, with people, if I don't have an inside view of like what people in Israel think, then, I can't make assumptions. What I wish I knew was what happened at that point when if Israel had all that land mass, and then at a certain point in time they said, okay, we're going to give the Arab world
here, I'll put
Gaza
this on the screen, by the way.
Bank.
Here, I'll put this on the screen. So this is this is a before and after on the screen. Before and after of the 6-Day War in 1967. So the Arab nations.
So my question is like, what happened that made them do that? Were they just like being nice, or was it like a civil war type of situation? It sounded to me like Israel didn't have to do that, but they did.
Correct. They did because they wanted to have healthy relations with Egypt. So that whole Sinai Peninsula, and that would have been very strategic for them, by the way, because they would have been able to control the Suez Canal. So they, like, if you think about it from a very purely political standpoint, and as you can tell, like up here it says, in 1967 ceasefire line, Israel withdrew from Sinai in 1982. And Gaza in 2005. So when they withdrew from Gaza in 2005, they kind of gave governing authority and control to the people of Gaza to make their own decisions. Their counter argument is that you guys elected Hamas as your leaders, and they've kept power, and they're abusing it, obviously, very, very clearly. But yeah, they didn't have to. I agree with you. They didn't have to. They could have said, hey, we fought it, we won, and it's all ours. They could have done that.
It kind of seems to me like they were saying, okay, well, you guys want a government? Okay, here, you can run a little experiment, see how you do with it. And it hasn't gone well. Like, am I still on?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh.
And I think a lot of Muslims.
You can run a little experiment. It didn't go well, and here we are. It's like, well, you gave the people some space to govern themselves. Yes, it's controlled as far as what goods can go in and out, but they kind of had a chance, and they haven't done very well, and it's like that can't go on forever. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, the other thing is that whenever you're on the losing end of any kind of a war or whatever like that, at one point or another, you probably have to just accept it. Right? Like that's just again, this is not a religious or whatever thing. So when the Germans lost World War II and their country was entirely governed by the West, with another half of it, right? So you get East Germany, West Germany, and then you get the East Germany thrown into Russia. West Germany is entirely governed by England and the United States. These Germans might not have liked it. They most likely didn't. But they had to admit it. There was a war that was fought. Same thing with the Japanese to a certain extent. When you lose it, you can't kind of keep complaining. And then also the issue is that you lose, you keep complaining about it. And then also you act in violent ways towards those people that you're accusing to be your oppressors. Right? Which is the case when it comes to this sort of a conflict. But again, I want to separate from these people who have these radicalized views of eradicating, like the comments they come up with. You can't be a sane person and support these individuals. When the Hamas leaders come up and say things like we should eradicate all the Jews, even if you're sympathetic towards the issue of the Palestinians, you have to say that this is wrong, this is evil, these guys are genocidal, they don't seem like they have any kind of a desire to even concede or get along. Like it's either my way or no way, like we're all gonna die. But they're speaking on behalf of a whole populace of people that probably disagrees with them as well, but they're too scared to speak out about it. And those people never get heard, is what I'm trying to say. Nobody pays attention really to those people. And I suppose there might be quite a bit of people at this point in Gaza who might say, and the West Bank, who would just say, guys, let's just be okay with becoming Israeli citizens and live our lives. Like, it's too much. You know, there's kids. I was watching a thing that was very sad. I was watching a little documentary. There are kids in Gaza who were born post 2005 that are in their teens now. And all they've known is a blockaded Gaza. So they didn't know anything before that. And then, again, these aren't 5-year-olds, right? These are 15, 16-year-olds. That's all they've known their entire life. So that's like, in my opinion, to kind of be a little harsher on the Israelis. By doing that, you're sort of creating a breeding ground to radicalize these kids. Like, that's not the best way to deal with it.
Here's the issue that I think my buddy would say. Like, okay, that sounds nice. Okay, so it's like, well, what's better for humanity at the end of the day? That's okay. So one group has to just say, okay, we admit defeat for the sake of the children, essentially, and the future. Okay, it's not worth all this casualty. Well, my buddy would say, here's the problem: is if Arabs or Palestinians, I don't always know the right nomenclature, but
sure.
If Palestinians do not have full rights in an Israeli state, then, you know, my buddy would say they won't agree to defeat, because defeat means I'm a second-class citizen. I have to go to separate bathrooms and separate this and
correct.
And you know,
it's a segregated society
for no reason. And he's like, exactly. So it's almost like Israel would have to say, we promise not to do that, but they can't trust Israel or something. I mean,
yeah, and the opposite is true as well, right? So do you allow people to come into government and in power, and maybe even in numbers, let's say in like 20 years be more than you, who say things like, we want to eradicate your entire racial group? So there's a great deal of fear. And as someone that comes from a culture that has a survivalistic mentality, that you're kind of always on the lookout for people wanting to erase you from the planet, that is a fear that the Jewish population has. You have to realize there's people living in Israel that survived the Holocaust. And then they have people that they're watching on television who are still calling for it. And so, of course, they're going to be afraid. And of course, I would say, based on that kind of thinking, and I'm not arguing for the ethics of this, I'm just arguing for the raw human reaction to these things, they're going to go overboard in regards to protecting anything like that happening to their grandkids or their kids.
Well, the way I see it is the history of segregation in the United States and other countries, to desegregate was a process.
Yeah.
And so the way I see it is, if you had a fully Israeli state land and got rid of Gaza and the West Bank, maybe there would be some forms of segregation and human rights issues at the beginning, and then you just hope and pray that it's a democratic society that, you know, the arc of morality, you know, bends towards justice. But you have to realize you have a starting point, and that is literally that's the history of other nations that had problems with segregation. They didn't start out great.
Yeah, and some countries have given their hand at this. I was actually speaking to a young teenager today who is from Lebanon, and he said none of his relatives are in Lebanon anymore. This is an Armenian guy from Lebanon, and they've all left there in various places, various countries. And he said the country doesn't even have a president. Now, one of the things people should consider about Lebanon is that it had a very interesting way of dividing its politics. And like Christians who were in Lebanon had a certain political position. So, you know, they're essentially protected. Like, I don't know. One of the Baltic nations, I thought it was Croatia, but I could be wrong, has this very interesting way of the way it runs its government, because there's multiple ethnic groups within that country. Like, there's Serbs in that country, and these people are like historically at odds, but politically within their government, they've given room for these individuals to be represented. Maybe that's the solution, right? So,
well, it seems to me if you were to pick, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me like the Palestinian form of government, you know, despite the fact that, you know, I don't know what kind of coups happened and whatnot, but it appears like they lean towards a theocratic type of government. And it appears that the Israeli form of government, at the least, even if it's a highly religious culture, the government leans towards a secular democratic government. And no matter what, you have to go with the democratic, secular-leaning government, because that is how things march forward on progress on human rights and stuff. You never want to pick the theocratic government, because that's always seems like a bad idea.
Well, it's very difficult to even judge. Is Israel actually like that? So here's an example, right? So Netanyahu came out the other day and he was quoting out of I believe Isaiah. These aren't really things we see in the United States. Like, we'll get presidents that get up. Like, I remember Barack Obama got up and he was quoting out of the Sermon on the Mount about caring for the poor and the needy, X, Y, and Z. In regards, and he was doing that in support of and in regards to like immigrants in the United States. But like, you don't get these things where Netanyahu got up and he was quoting a passage from Isaiah and saying this prophecy is being fulfilled. Like, right? Like, the Muslims get and should, to a certain extent, like trash, I would say, and blame when it comes to like their theocratic leanings and views, and like saying, hey, this is whatever, our religion dictates X, Y, and Z. But so does Israel. Like whether it's democratic or secular or whatever like that, if something like that happened in the United States, I think even the religious people would have a hard time with it, right? So even the Christians, well, maybe recently it's been kind of
hey, I've seen some videos, man. There's some local government stuff where people will like hold prayer and do Bible readings, before their local government meeting, like in public. Governmental reading.
Yeah, but that's very different than saying, hey, it's a prophetic fulfillment of, let's go conquer Mexico. Like,
it's also different when it's, the head of state.
Correct.
Well, anyways, thanks for helping me with some of the history.
Yeah, man. I mean,
if you want to stay on this topic, then I'll go and I can bug you about other stuff a different time.
No, I don't mind changing the topic. It's fine.
Well, you dismissed my question before, but because I lean towards being a humanist, I cannot help but see many of these things as having, just some religious stuff in it, such as like, this is a holy land or whatever. And so the question is, like, is there any test you can do to know if someone is of a particular religion? Like, you have a human, you can't do a test to see if someone is Jewish or not. You can't do a test to see if someone is Christian or not. There's no test.
Well, you shouldn't ask that. So I wouldn't ask that in that general sense, because all religions aren't the same. So what makes someone a Muslim? They have to say the Shahada. Like, that's it. Islam will tell you, right? Like, if you're going to be a Muslim, whether you're an obedient Muslim or not, it doesn't matter. But if you've said the Shahada, you're a Muslim by identity.
So are you saying it's a self-identification?
Well, it has to be to a certain extent. The individual has to identify as such. For whatever reason. I mean, the reasons could differ.
I mean, it's possible that someone in Palestine could just identify as a Jew.
Correct. Yeah, of course. I don't see why not.
They're Jewish, right? Is that okay?
Well, no. I mean, in regards to Judaism, it would be a different standard.
There's no test you can do to tell if someone is Jewish or not, I guess is my point.
Yeah, are we talking about a religious, what it would make to be a religion? Not the ethnicity.
It's only if someone self-identifies. And
correct, but self-identifies to what the teachings of that religion are, or what the standards are that have been set in place by either the founders of that religion or later leaders of that religion.
Well, I don't think that matters because nobody's perfect.
But hey, I'll give you an example.
I can identify it as a
I'll give you an example, even amongst.
Let
me give you this example amongst Christians. Okay, like if I were to identify myself as an Orthodox Christian, I mean, capital O, Eastern Orthodox. Right, it would be legitimate for somebody to tell me that, Arthur, you're not an Orthodox Christian. And they would actually have a test of that, because there's certain ceremonies that I have to go through in order to identify as an Orthodox Christian. As a member of the Eastern Orthodox Church, you have to go through certain ceremonies and rituals, and then you'll be confirmed as a member of the Eastern Orthodox religion.
So if you claim to be a member of that, I would have to call up the church and see if you're in the records or something?
Yeah, like if you were going to actually, probably. This is partly why churches historically have kept baptism records. Because baptism is what identified people as Christians. And so they kept very detailed baptism records. I'll give you an example. I'll give you another example. You cannot be a citizen of Armenia unless you have proof that you were baptized as a Christian.
Is that true?
Yes. So if I were to go and apply for a dual citizenship of Armenia right now, the embassy, the Armenian embassy in the United States, I could do that here, I could do that there, but regardless, would tell me that they need a number of things. Either they need evidence that I was born there, they need evidence that either one of my parents is Armenian. Added on top of that, they ask for a baptism certificate or some kind of a letter from a church or a recognized Christian church recognized by the Armenian government needs to verify that I've been baptized. Now it's
so
really,
you can't be Muslim and Armenian?
Well, that you can, of
Can
course
you
you
be-
can. Yeah, this is the thing. It's the weird thing, because suppose, let's say you're born in Armenia and you're an Armenian citizen because by birth you're an Armenian citizen, and then you convert into Islam, right? Or whatever religion, doesn't matter. Or you're an atheist. It's not like there aren't atheists in Armenia, right? It's just interesting. But for me to become a citizen of Armenia, they ask for those things.
So you can't be a Muslim.
It seems to me that most religions aren't like that. I understand you know about some that do have record keeping things like that.
So this is why I said we have to speak specifically. We have to specifically speak about like what we're talking about. It's like how do you know somebody's committed themselves to Judaism? Well, they got to get circumcised if they're a dude. That's a part of conversion into Judaism. Right. Suppose they're already circumcised. Cool.
That's weird, man.
Now, well, whether it's weird or not, it doesn't matter. That's besides the point.
I mean, how do you test
we don't have to be
an atheist, though?
What was that?
How do you test if someone's an atheist?
Well, they self-identify.
That's what my point is.
I mean, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, what does it matter? If someone claims to believe,
people seem really concerned about what religion people are, and I think that it does influence some of these international geopolitical conflicts. And my point is that there is no test and you just have to trust people. Now, Arthur brought up a good point about the record keeping, but I mean, if someone walks into a church and you ask them, are you a Christian or not? All you have is their word. Am I wrong about that?
So if somebody comes from the outside and says, "Are you a Christian?" Sure. I mean, we take.
You can't scan them. You can't do a blood test. You can't do an MRI or something.
Correct, but you can do. You can do a test. No, you can do a test of their beliefs. You can say, "Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Do you believe that? Do you not believe this?" I mean, you run them through very essential beliefs about what.
Oh, would you do like a polygraph?
No, I mean, look, if people are gonna lie, then they're gonna lie. You can't do much about that. I wouldn't.
Do you want the Palestinians to lie about being Jewish and then they'll be saved?
Well, it's not about heaven.
Do you want the Palestinians to lie?
If you watch any true crime
be saved?
No, he's not asking about heaven.
People things, and people will say, did you do the crime? And they'll say, no, I didn't do the crime. But they don't just take them at their word. They look for, they'll give people polygraphs.
Yeah.
So yeah, if somebody walked into your church and said, are you a Christian? Like, what else? I feel like all you have is their word. It seems.
I want to know the end result of this. Like, cool. I'm okay with saying all you have is their word. they could be complete charlatans and liars. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
But what else? Like, I don't think there's anywhere in the Bible that necessarily teaches me to verify them in the sort of ways you're talking about verifying them. I think there are ways in the Bible that it speaks about, be careful. There's people who are going to be in the church who aren't actual believers. You know, they're wolves among sheep. The Bible tells us that you will know people, or you would be able to tell if they're real Christians by the sort of life they live, by the fruits they bear. These are ways that I would generally use in conversations with people. If somebody's at our church who claims to be a Christian and then like 3 weeks later is denying the Trinity, I'm going to tell them you're not a Christian.
Well, if there's groups saying that they want to wipe out people of a different faith, like they want to wipe out Jewish people, wouldn't we want to convince them that they actually can't know if someone's Jewish? Like, there's no way to actually know.
Oh, I don't think they care about a religious identity at that point. Well, or the religious identity is intermingled with an ethnic identity. Because here's what they will not do. Kill you if you're ethnically Jewish and convert into Islam. Let me put it this way. If the entire state of Israel today got up and all together recited the Shahada and became Muslims, the Palestinians wouldn't stand there and say, kill these people.
They wouldn't.
No, because they're Muslims. They are their brother. This is not
that's my point. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's sort of my point, but it's not a good point, but it's fascinating. And I know you're a smart guy. I appreciate you. And, you know, you can handle nuance, and maybe I will flesh this out more another time. But as, you know, a non-believer, when I watch some of this stuff, I can't help but see the religious stuff in the conflict.
Dude, I don't disagree with you. Like it gets under my nerves when people try to think that these conflicts are secular. I was just earlier playing a video. I was playing a video earlier on, and you guys can go watch this. Please go, everybody. Go on YouTube, type in Turkish president's speech for either 100-year anniversary or pro-Palestinian rally, whatever it may be. Okay, watch the entire speech. This is the president of Turkey talking about warning the West and telling them, do you want to have another Crescent versus Christianity Crusader war? That doesn't sound like a secular person to me. And he's not. Whether the West wants to be fooled into thinking he is, he's not. The conflict
more than that, when on October 8th, I was searching Twitter through some keywords, and I was finding, you know, it looked to me like, well, there's no good analogy, but I was finding tweets like, you know, essentially Allah is on our side, and I was finding tweets, Jehovah is on our side.
Correct.
Like, this is our moment with Jehovah, and then other people, this is our moment with Allah.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my, come on.
These are highly religious. These are highly religious societies, and this is where, again, I've very regularly, I think, referred to a number of my audience as saying "you guys" to distinguish myself from them. People, so I watched videos of Americans and Azeris trying to explain to the West that the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict was a purely secular conflict. And it irritated me. It's not at the level of religious kind of stuff, I would say, as the Israel Jewish conflict, but it's very close. It irritated me because if I ever sat in front of, like, if I was sitting in front of an Azeri ambassador who said, and again, these are real conversations that have been had, who said something like, oh, no, the Armenians are making this a religious conflict. This is a purely secular conflict over land and rulership and stuff. I would say to them, okay, why is it that when you guys took over Shushi, the first thing you did is start converting the main cathedral in Shushi into a mosque. What is that communicating? Why is it that when your soldiers go into a certain area and conquer the area, one of the first places you guys go into is a church or on top of a church and break off the cross and throw it down and yell Allahu Akbar? It's secular. That doesn't sound like secular to me. I get that people are going to say God is on my side. Like, that's normal, right?
Okay.
But when they start quoting passages, when they say this is a prophecy being fulfilled, when these individuals are doing the sort of stuff I spoke about, right? Not just God is on our side. Like, that I can understand in, like, even if you're like an extremely carnal sort of whatever, Muslim or Christian or Jew, you don't really follow the religion, but you identify as such, you're going to say stuff like, God is with me, God is with us, and also. But when you start putting into practice some of this stuff, then I'm like, okay, it seems like the motivation is a lot more religious, even though it's not like surface level spoken about. And those are the sorts of questions I would ask. This is why I brought up Netanyahu getting up and talking about prophecies being fulfilled. It's very interesting to me why he would speak about prophecies being fulfilled. Now, again, I don't know what his motivation is. He could actually believe it.
It could be more political.
It could be. It very well could be.
I don't know your views on Trump. I mean, I would basically see him as a non-religious person.
I agree. I don't think Trump is a Christian.
Photo shoots he still did photo shoots in front of churches, and like I saw that as basically a political move. And so it's like, well, we don't, is Netanyahu doing the same thing with making statements like that?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from Donald Trump is when they asked him his favorite Bible verse, and he said, all of it. I like the whole thing. Like, to me, as someone who regularly speaks to people on these subjects and gets asked what my favorite Bible passage is, and I ask people what their favorite Bible passage is, if somebody asks me what my favorite Bible passage is, there's probably like 2 or 3 that immediately come to my mind. I'm like, okay, these are like 2 Corinthians 5:20 would probably come into my mind very quickly if somebody asked me what my favorite Bible passage was. It shows an ignorance that you can't just recall anything and then your backup plan is, I love all of it. Like, really, do you love, I don't know, Numbers 22:5 that probably lists like, and there was 144,000 or 120,000. Like, you don't. You probably, that's not your favorite passage. If you read the Bible quite a bit, you're probably going to have a number of Bible passages that you're more attuned with and care about, or even sections. You could say like, man, I don't necessarily have a favorite Bible passage, but I really enjoy the Sermon on the Mount. Like, these are the sorts of things that very religious people say because they read and interact with the text.
Here's the way I was understanding this is like, I do understand that there could be religiously motivated cultural differences. So I do respect the fact that people want their own space. Like, they might see it as important to have different laws. Like, obviously we fight about that all the time in the U.S., like about abortion. So it's like, well, maybe the Palestinians, and there's, I don't have answers, but it's like, maybe there's something about Israeli culture that is informed by their religion that makes them say, we need our own state because we actually want certain laws.
There's no question about that. There's no question about that.
Okay.
Like, okay, so I'll give you an example that has to do with this conflict is in regards to who can go near the Al-Aqsa Mosque. One of the conditions that was made, I believe, with the Jordanian authorities in regards to being the protectors of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is that Jews cannot go where the mosque is. So,
but that's like a federal law?
This is like a known thing where they're not supposed to go there. But very recently, some people are thinking this is the precursor to this whole issue, is because remember the attack that happened on October 7th was called like Al-Aqsa, whatever attack or mission or something like that by the Hamas. So why would they call it the Al-Aqsa attack? Because it had to do with that. So very recently, a very prominent kind of right-wing, more religious Jewish politician went like with camera crews and everything like that and walked near the mosque or in an area he wasn't supposed to be. And that caused an uproar. So there were, at a certain point in, let's just say the Jews rebuilt the temple. A part of the laws that have to do with the temple is that certain people can't go into certain places. So we've found an inscription. So we've found an inscription from around the time of Jesus. So the temple that was around what's called Herod's temple, where it says that if you're a Gentile and you cross over into a certain territory, that this is at risk of you dying. So very clearly,
right. And so if you had like a purely secular or like atheistic government takeover, like I would never come up with a law like that. But I respect the fact that, you know, people with different cultures need their own regions. I mean, I sometimes think like Utah is going to like be coming up with like more and more of their own laws. Like
maybe
and
so.
Just could be like a Mormon state. Like, and it's like, fine, like that's good for them. Like,
yeah, I mean, and again, depending on the way we want to arrange, the U.S. has a very unique system in my mind. I actually think it has one of the best systems. But what do you do when you got such sharp differences? So, say in Israel, on the Shabbat, there's no work that is done. Right? And they're, say, as a government, they go, all businesses are closed from this time to this time. But you're not Jewish and you live in Israel and you're like, no, I want to run my business. So do you, and again, people can inform me on this, but, and there are obviously non-Jews in Israel. Do they submit to that and then go, cool, like this is the law, we're not going to do this? Or can they say, no, we want to run our businesses, we're not Jewish? And how that sits.
I think it's simple. You either get involved in politics, like hopefully it's some form of democracy, and you try to change the law, or you move.
Yeah, I think that's the naivety in your American, just like, and I appreciate it, by the way. I appreciate it, and I like it. I agree with you. I sympathize with you.
No, I admit when I'm ignorant on things, like, but that just seems like duh.
Yeah, like get involved in politics and make your decisions. The thing is that whenever your religious identity and your ethnic identity are so tied in, and then somebody else is going to go in there and try to change that or influence it, you're just asking for trouble, is what I'm saying. There's going to be some kind of conflict that comes over it. And maybe that is the solution. I don't know. Maybe the solution is, hey, and again, Israel might sit there and say, hey, we tried this. We gave them Gaza. We didn't interfere. We didn't want to go in there. And they could do whatever we want. We don't have Jewish laws in Gaza. And they haven't been doing it well. They don't want to live at peace with us. But then they're going to stand and say, for those who don't know, there's plenty of people that live in Gaza that work in Israel. And there's like checkpoints and crossings and stuff like that they cross over. And their arguments are, well, you guys sort of keep us like prisoners in here because if we, like every single one of us, if a student has to go to school or we're going to come in and work, we got to stand in line for 2 hours. That's like normally a 10-minute drive or something like that. Then you guys are oppressing us. These are the sort of things you're going to hear from pro-Palestinian people. And I think to a certain extent, they're valid. But then again, the response is, well, we can't trust you guys because some of you guys sneak in bombs and blow up our coffee shops. So that's why we have these checkpoints. And this is just the complications of it.
Some people will go towards where opportunity is. So, for example, I used to live in Detroit, and where I worked, there were people who were Canadian citizens at the same place that I worked at. And they would drive across the border, and
Right.
it was probably a pain and a hassle, and maybe it wasn't 2 hours, but some days there was a long line. And like, why would they do that? Why would they go through all that hassle?
Yeah, my
just to
question
come
would
to
be:
work? And it
imagine,
was like, well, because the opportunity was there. But I don't think anybody was saying, oh, we're oppressing Canadians for making them go through a border checkpoint. Nobody was
yeah. I mean, it depends on the way
that
you're
kind of
doing that,
thing.
right?
It's just there was a big, huge business in Detroit, and enough Canadians said, I'll make more money if I cross the border every day.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it depends the way it's done and the way you treat these Canadians coming in. But if you want to complicate the matter, you would say, imagine if a couple of Canadians started sneaking in bombs and blowing up American, coffee shops and businesses and hurting people. And then the Americans, as a response, made it like 1,000 times more difficult to come into the country.
Anything, so
what?
Maybe it's just me on now.
No. You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
I don't have the YouTube open, so I don't know what's happening. Maybe we just lost Arthur.
Can you guys hear me?
Looks like everybody on Discord can hear you.
Arthur, are you here?
Can you hear me, guys? My Discord crowd just... Okay, let me join back in. That was weird. Hey, Discord.
I have no idea.
Hey, Discord folks, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, that was weird. I have no idea what happened. What I was going to say is, imagine if some Canadians blew up some, or what I did say, imagine if some Canadians came in and started harming U.S. citizens and blowing stuff up, and the United States made it 10,000 times more difficult for the Canadians to come in. Right? But again, Canada has its own leadership and X, Y, and Z, and it wants to live in harmony. But imagine if they didn't want to live in harmony and their like entire plan of their political leadership was to eradicate the Americans. That's the complication.
Even if let's say 90% of the Canadian citizens wanted to live in harmony, but you had some government that no one expected that wanted disharmony, and it's like that Canadian citizen still wants to come over for their better work opportunity, but the government is messing it up for them. Because there's some interesting statistics I found about how many people go across the border for work, and like it appears like Israel has been trying to increase that, and it's like every few years it's like, okay, you get a gold star, you're doing well. That I probably shouldn't say that, but you get a thumbs up, okay, you're doing good. We'll increase that. Can't say gold star on this topic, I guess. And then you do a little better and do a little better, and they were wanting improvement. I read there's some interesting stats you can find on that. Not every analogy works one-to-one, but you have a good point, Arthur, that imagine if just a few people came across the border and started like bombing places in Detroit, then it would ruin it for all the other Canadians who were not doing the bombing.
Yeah, especially, again, what you said was right on, because it has to do with the governing authorities. It's the way the people that make the decisions. Look, we enjoyed the, what I would say, democratic responsibilities in the United States. We also realize there's decisions that are made, and nobody's sitting there saying, I wonder what Arthur thinks about this. And that's partly why the United States is a representative republic, is because we send representatives to, our halls of politics, and then ideally, those people are representing us well from a local level. And then so they're making decisions that we're okay with and we agree with, but we realize that there's obviously quite a bit of people that disagree. You're always going to have people who disagree with the individuals, right? So I used to live in a region where our representative was Adam Schiff, who's obviously been is a known name in American politics now. But I disagree with most of the stuff that Adam Schiff says and believes in. He's a part of the Democratic establishment, cahoots with, the Clintons and cahoots with the Bidens and all that stuff. There's probably like one thing I agree with Adam Schiff is that he really tries to represent the Armenian community, because there's a large amount of Armenians in that area, and takes those up into the political areas. But that's just going to be the case. You're always going to have people make decisions on behalf of other people, and like there's no way really around that. Well, the best you can do is, I think, what we have in regards to a representative republic, because it's better to have that than have like one guy making a decision for everyone, right? It seems to be that there's a wisdom inherent in that idea that you're going to have more people, disagreeing and making decisions. But this is the real nature of the conflict, and again, the sad reality is that I don't know what the latest numbers are, that 1,000 some odd people that are Israelis and non-Israelis who were at a party, who were sitting in their homes, were terrorized. People came into their homes and shot them up and killed them. And it seems like that decapitating of little kids is pretty attested to now. Did horrific things. Not everyone did that. Not all those guys, but nonetheless, they did terrorize them. They saw that as a war and went in there, and 1,000 some odd Israelis who woke up that morning, like I wake up to have, breakfast with my kids, and their life was turned upside down, because decisions were made, whether we agree with it or disagree with it. And the same is true when it comes to whatever the 6,000 some odd Palestinians that have been killed are. People's children have died. Their lives are completely changed. And people's brothers and sisters. I mean, imagine being a 7-year-old whose 2-year-old brother died, and what your view of the Israelis is going to be now.
Yeah, but I think a lot of Muslims think, I think in the Quran it says that the Jews have to be killed or something in the end times. So I think a lot of religious Muslims, which is probably a big chunk of them, like 20%, like Sam Harris said or something, a lot of them want to totally eradicate all the Jews because it's in the Quran or something, and hadiths. Because Muhammad was a fighter guy.
That's a possibility. I don't know the numbers. I can't just sit there and kind of pontificate on that stuff and be like, what I could say is, does that religion teach that? And if it's in the Quran, then it does teach that. But here's a good question one might want to ask is like, what about Muslims from, say, Malaysia? Like, how come the Malaysian Muslims aren't like speaking about eradicating all the Jews? I don't know. Maybe they are. I just never heard a Malaysian like saying that.
Okay.
But I think that's a legitimate question to ask.
I could be wrong there because I know that in one of the book it says in the Quran that they'll kill the Jews behind the trees and the rocks.
I actually tend to think it does. I think Muhammad was an extremely violent man. The founder of the religion was violent. I think Islam has spread by violence. If I had 10 choices, I'd say 9 of them, it was spread by violence. My people have been very, very accustomed to and known what that's looked like throughout the centuries. But I still want to be rational about it and say maybe, again, it could be that Malaysian Muslims have a form of Islam that is very, very different, and they might be called heretics or whatever. I don't know what the inter-Islamic kind of conversations on some of this stuff is, right? Because let me put it this way, who's backing Hamas and Hezbollah? Right, so it's Iran. It's Iran. It's Iran.
And Qatar.
Iran is Shia. Okay? So they expect certain things in their theology. They believe certain things. They believe certain hadiths and stuff that Sunnis disagree with. And so maybe there's a dialogue they should have amongst themselves. I'm not sure. But let's just say if Catholics got up and did something, this would be the equivalent. If a bunch of Catholics got up and did something, and I said, well, I think they're wrong because, and I justified it through my theology and explained things, and said, well, the Catholics are wrong, I'd be in my right. And I think if Sunnis get up and say, the question is, and maybe the problem is, are the Sunnis getting up and saying they're wrong? Are the Shiites getting up and saying they're wrong? Like, is the general Islamic population getting up and speaking against and condemning and saying this is wrong, this is not what our religion teaches? That's a question everybody needs to ask themselves. Are they getting up and saying this? And maybe some are.
I think the Muslims like what's happening to Gaza because then they'll get more support from the West or from other Muslim countries, and then the Jews will have to sue for peace because the Muslim countries around them will overwhelm them. Because there's nothing to do. Like if they believe in paradise when they die, they go to paradise.
To do that. What you're saying is they tried that. Every single Muslim country around Israel tried to attack them in 1967.
They have more weapons now, though.
Lost in 5 days.
Turkey has more weapons. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they have way more weapons now.
Correct, but we shouldn't forget that so does Israel. I mean, the fact that they can mobilize a 300,000 person reserve army in like 3 days should say enough.
And they have America on their side as well. So
sure, yeah, and again, this is why this is bad news for everyone.
But I don't think it'll go that far. I doubt it'll turn to World War III. I don't think the Muslims are that stupid to start World War III. I could be wrong. Because some Muslims probably want the end of the world to happen. They're that desperate that they actually want it to happen. And it could be the same for the Jews. They actually want the end of the world to happen.
Look, there are
so they
Christians that want the end of the world to happen. Like I agree with you. It's just I can't comment on that. I don't know whether they want or they don't. And again, like I said, I'm not very convinced whether I trust those individuals that are making these sorts of decisions because I keep seeing them make bad decisions.
But you think they're doing bad decisions because of their religion mainly, and they want the end of the world to happen?
No, I don't think. I don't think anything is ever as clear as that. I think money is a motivator. I think power is a motivator almost always, and people will use religion to do that as well. Obviously, worldview and religion are motivators. So trade routes, bordering countries, who gets to make decisions on what for the next 50 years, are all factors of making decisions that could cause wars to erupt.
Yeah, this is what I think Israel wants. They want to occupy Gaza and Palestine and not let them vote in Hamas ever again. They'll have a democracy, but they won't be able to vote in for extremist Muslim parties. And they'll just occupy those places forever. They'll probably not be able to rebuild a lot of the places they bombed because they won't be allowed to or something. And or maybe they'll kick a lot of them out.
There's 2 million people that live in that place, man. That's
they might want to. Some of them might want to kick all of them out. I'd say there's a lot of Jews that want to kick them out fully.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that. It's just, again, I don't know how I can explain a situation like that.
But do you think the Egyptians will let them? If the Jews were to kick them out, would the Egyptians let them come, or bordering countries?
I'm not even sure whether Egypt would be able to take care of that many people. 2 million refugees coming into your country.
The UN will have to get involved, or the rich Muslim countries would have to aid them.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. What's wrong with Iran? Why does Iran hate Jews so much? Why do they?
You know what the
is it because the Quran
is? The ironic thing is that there have been Iranian Jews that have been living in Iran. Persian Jews since biblical times, since Cyrus the Great, since 600 BC. So again, when you say Iran, it's again, we're talking about the Iranian people. We're talking about the Persian people. Are we talking about most of the people in Iran currently do not want the government that they have. There's been protests to get rid of them for the past, I don't know how many years, but it's a totalitarian religious theocracy, and they are abusing their people. So I don't know what to say. It's sad because I have family in Iran, by the way.
Oh yeah, I heard you were born in Iran or something.
I was not born in Iran. I was born in Armenia, but my parents were born in Iran.
You lived in Iran.
Yeah, my wife was born in Iran, so I have quite a bit of family from my mom, from my parents' side, from my wife's side. Quite a bit of people that we know and we care about that live in that country, and it's in really, really bad shape currently.
Yeah, so I think the Muslims in those Iran and Saudi Arabia need to like chill out a bit. They need to like not follow their religions as much. They need to.
I feel like if we make Sean the dictator of Iran, he'll fix it.
Yeah, it's funny about democracy. Like you can vote in a bad. See, the funny thing about democracy, you can vote in a bad government as well.
Stupid people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect.
And there's a danger there because once you vote in stupid people, then those stupid people make stupid decisions and it impacts you.
Yeah, but then the religious people would say you need a dictator that is religious, like a perfect utopian religious state would be an Islamic state. A Christian state would be a Christian king or something.
Yeah, I don't know. What I mean? I really haven't heard many Christians arguing for that, but I don't know.
Well, there's some in America, like the Christian nationalists.
Maybe
but then the
very fringe.
The Christian
the media gives them way too much attention.
True, but then the Christians would say you need to be a religious democracy or something, because if you're all atheists and stuff, it wouldn't be good democracy or something. But it's the same with the Jews. I mean, the Jews voted in Netanyahu, and he's quite conservative, so that means that Israel is not that progressive. I thought they were more progressive, but I guess they like Netanyahu because he got the support from the extreme conservative Jews that are probably telling him we want the end of the world to happen or something.
Yeah, I can't comment on that.
That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. Thanks for your opinion.
Yeah, so you'd like to talk about something else?
Oh, well, we got about 4 people in the Discord chat. So Discord folks, if you want to take this conversation in a different direction, feel more than welcome. This would be your time to jump in and say, hey, let's talk about something else.
Someone said something there.
Yeah, I think it was Jason. He was saying Jerome. But it might be like Jerome's on a train somewhere, I think is what I read.
Oh, they want Jerome to join in. Surprised he didn't come. He's too afraid of me. But yeah, so what else can I say? I mean, I used to be very religious. I used to be Catholic. I used to pray a lot. And then I watched YouTube and criticize my beliefs. I used to be big into conspiracy theories, Alex Jones and all that.
Oh no.
And then I criticized that. Then I started criticizing that as well. And now I'm a full-blown climate change atheist.
Why would you listen to Alex Jones?
I used to. I used to be right-wing.
Yeah, I don't know why. You've gone from one extreme to the other extreme. Jerome said, brave of people to think I won't just permanently lurk.
Hey, Sean, you still here?
Sean just like cut off, so I don't know what's going
No.
on. Oh,
I was
there
gonna
he's
ask
back.
if
He's
he's
back.
his criticism.
He's back. Tyler wants to ask why. He asked me in the Discord chat. He said, "Bro, I'm confused about why you don't show a pic of you wearing the body armor, or go on stream wearing it. Because I don't feel like it, and I don't want to." That's just not what the
Yeah.
nature of this channel.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I
So
lost you.
you told us that you were into Alex Jones, and you said you were right wing. Like right
No,
wing.
I wasn't right wing. Sorry, I was confused. I didn't know what I was, but it's probably left leaning. Sorry, but Alex Jones probably progressed. He wasn't fully right wing, but he was center right wing. He's probably more right wing now. But I used to believe in more conspiracies back in the day, and I think that religious people believe in more conspiracy theories than atheists. But I could be wrong.
That's
in
a
different
very
conspiracy
interesting.
theories.
That's an interesting proposal as to whether or not that's the case.
That's what I heard, but maybe not always, because there's some atheists that are quite like left-leaning people that were really some were really anti-COVID vaccines and stuff like that. So we're not immune to conspiracy stuff, but that doesn't mean they're all not true, you know.
Well, some things could be a conspiracy for a certain amount of time, and then you figure out, oh, that's actually what was going on. And some of it's pretty justifiable. Like it makes sense for the government to have secrets that the general population doesn't know.
It makes like sense. Military and
it makes sense. Well, correct. Like
CIA and all that.
Imagine if every single night the government released potential dangers to its country that were, discovered and shut down. You would probably have panic in general society. Because, we live our day-to-day lives pretty nonchalantly, and we don't think about that stuff. It's just not a bad idea for the government to have those kinds of secrets. Cool with it. I don't have any issue with it. I don't think they have to come and tell everyone.
Yeah, the CIA and NSA and all the spy agencies.
Whomever,
yeah,
it doesn't matter to me.
I mean,
has
when you're an atheist,
you think 24. Did you ever watch 24?
Is that the healthcare thing? Oh no, the police thing.
The show, yeah, it's a very fun show. You should watch
it. Yeah, no, I wasn't. I was too young when that was on. It's finished now.
Yeah, correct. But it's a really, really good show. It's about an anti-terrorist task force that's like, secretly doing stuff.
And do you think that happens now all the time?
I know it happens.
Oh, because you probably know some people that do that.
Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you're an atheist, you think that all religions are fake, so that they are a conspiracy. Like when you think about it, religion is one of the biggest conspiracies out there. Like,
well, that's not true.
It's one of the oldest.
That's not true because there's a good amount of atheists that disagree with the conclusions that Christians come to specifically, or religious people come to, and they understand the rational nature of them coming to those conclusions. They just disagree with the conclusions. They wouldn't necessarily think that it's a conspiracy. They understand how the arguments flow. I've had the conversations with a good amount of atheists that are like that, and I appreciate that.
Oh, but they wouldn't say that there was no lies involved? Like people were lying?
No, not necessarily. They could say that people actually believed it. They were just wrong about it. Right?
Right. So you think they wrote
wrong about
the stuff?
Something is okay. You can be wrong about something without having to immediately put motive to it. Like, oh, they lied.
So you think some atheists think that the people who wrote it actually believed it, but they were just wrong.
Well, yeah,
Or
as far as I know, most of the atheists that are serious atheists that I read and listen to tend to take a position like that. That these people actually believe this stuff. Because if you're going to come up with a position of lying about it, which is a motive, and then you also have to justify what their gain is to lie about it.
power.
If there's minimal gain, none of them got any power.
Some did.
Who?
Muhammad.
No, I'm not talking about religion generally. I'm talking about Christianity specifically.
Okay.
I agree with you on Muhammad. He did get a lot of power.
Paul.
What power did Paul get?
Paul got. Well, he got attention, emotional.
Paul was getting beat up by his Jewish friends for preaching contrary to them regularly, persecuted.
Oh, well, I could say that he was probably delusional. He believed in what he believed
you can
in
say
lies,
whatever you
but
want. The problem is not
that's my
whether
opinion.
you can say something. So it's never a part of this conversation whether somebody can say something. It's whether they can back it up. The thing they say. Like if you say he was delusional, I'd say cool, defend it.
Yeah, I don't have all the evidence,
Yeah.
but there's probably scholars and atheists that can prove
just
that.
for example, just to make an example, the way you would back up like, oh, I think Muhammad was motivated by power is actually by showing cases in which Muhammad became more and more powerful and less people could disagree with him, and what that got him in regards to X, Y, and Z, right? So that would be your support for your claim. When it comes to someone like Paul, he never got fame. He actually was probably more. So here's two things about Paul. He was more famous before his conversion, most likely. He had more authority, definitely. And he was definitely more famous after his death. But at that point, who cares? It's not like he had children that he left this power to. Like that would even be a fair justification to say, well, Paul's son ended up becoming the religious leader of the Christian community and gained power in X, Y, and Z.
No, maybe he believed in falsehoods, so people wrote down things because they thought that it would be good for society, but did they know they were wrong? Like a lot of religious things are good for society, some of them are not. So like the miracles and stuff were just to make you convinced more. But they
Yeah, but
probably
Paul didn't need any
didn't.
of those things. He already was a Jew who believed in a good amount of those, and his people were living according to those laws very well.
But he wanted to change it, you see.
Why?
Because he thought they were wrong, some of the beliefs the Jews had.
Yeah, but why? He very clearly thought the Christians were wrong, and he was killing Christians prior to that. So
well, he changed his mind, I guess, because he thought the Jewish laws were wrong, were stupid, like...
yeah, again, the justification is weak. The reasoning you're giving is very, very weak. Not saying it's well thought out.
Well, I'll try to explain it.
Yeah.
I mean,
hang on here. Says, Taylor says, Apologia Center, according to Doug, I think, Paul got money and power. The references need to be there. What power did he get? Very clearly, there's people who abandon Paul. There's churches who don't listen to him. That's very clear in the New Testament. What money did he get when he's talking about being shipwrecked and being homeless and being stranded, and he went to jail, ended up being beheaded? Again, what's the power that he got? Did he have an army? Again, I'm not saying that Doug did say these things, but you're saying maybe him. Those arguments.
Well, yeah, he could have lied. He could have lied for good reason too. Like he wanted to change the society for better, but he could have lied doing so. I mean, you could lie for good things as well,
Correct. Yeah, but did he need to is the question. Did he have a need to do that? It seems like he was pretty well situated in his society already.
Yeah, but he chose not. He chose to lie. I mean, people do that. I mean, People
Correct,
change things
but
all the
you
time.
can't. Yes, if you're gonna say he did, you can't say, well, what if? Because the what if conversation doesn't get you anywhere. One would have to give reasons for their what if.
Well, obviously, we don't have evidence. We don't have written documents to prove that he lied. But there's other ways, like contradictions. What else? Miracles are not really accurate. What else?
Well, you've brought up all the contradictions, and they were really bad previously, not today.
Yeah. Well, what's his name? The other guy, Bert Ehrman, knows more about that. What
sure.
else? Does the atheists have better? I mean, I'll tell you something else. Okay, what do you think about God? Does God have free will? No. Does God have? Yeah. Does he have the freedom of choice or something? Free will or something?
Yes.
So he has a choice to do good and bad.
He has a choice to do what?
Good and bad.
No, God doesn't have a choice to do bad.
So he doesn't have free will.
Well, he does have free will. He has free will as it is according to his nature.
Okay.
And doing
But
bad
isn't
is
free
not in his
will?
nature.
So in his nature, he can only do good.
Correct. That's what it means to be all good.
But I thought free will was you have the choice to do good and bad.
Yeah. So that's when we talk about these things, we're talking about specific to humans, or we're talking about not specific to humans. That's the way it's separated.
So
God has
God
free
doesn't
will.
follow those laws.
Not necessarily, not all of them. He doesn't need to.
So he doesn't have free will. He has like his own special law.
God does everything in accordance to his nature.
Which is?
That's a complicated question to get into at this point. But one of them is that he can't do bad or evil. So maybe we can make it easier for you. Let me make it easier for you. Can God choose to not exist?
Well, if he had free will, he would. He could.
Even if no, he couldn't.
No, if he had free will, he can kill himself. He can delete himself.
If God, by definition, is a thing that can't die and stop existing, how would he be able to?
But he's all powerful. But if he's all powerful, all knowing, all everything, he could technically, couldn't he?
No, he couldn't. Because
so he's not all
powerful. That would be a violation of his nature. That would be a violation of the laws of non-contradiction.
Sorry, I don't understand the laws of non-contradiction. What does that mean? Sorry.
Well, two things can't be if two things are opposites, they can't be true at the same time in the same way.
I don't get that. Sorry.
So if I said 2 plus 2 is 4 and 2 plus 2 is 5, they can't both be true at the same time in the same way.
All right. Okay. So God does not have free will like humans do. He's got his own special laws.
Yeah. I'm okay with that statement. It's not like humans. Yeah, because humans have the capacity to do evil.
Okay, but some atheists would say that the good things that God did were kind of bad in our subjective views, moral views.
Then I'd be like, good for you, atheists. Keep your subjective views subjective.
Because God allowed Satan and he made Satan and stuff
they can
like
say
that.
Whatever they want to say, man. I just tell them it's subjective. Have fun. I'm serious. It's like, I don't care about your subjective views.
Oh man, I thought my view was gonna get. Yep.
Do you have free will?
Yes.
Can you fly?
Actually, no. Sorry, I can't. There's this scientist I heard there saying that humans actually don't have free will.
Yeah, but
so there's new theory out there that. Well, there's one I haven't I haven't listed. I should listen more. He's very famous now. He's talked to all the famous podcasters. Something's Polsky, he's a Polish guy, scientist, and he's saying that humans actually don't have free will, according to science or something. So I don't know. I'm not
Right.
sure. Okay, let's say
But
we
do you
don't have free
believe
will,
that?
but I still live.
Do you believe that you have free will?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you fly?
No.
Okay. Does it mean that you don't have free will because you can't fly?
I can't fly. Yeah, you still have free will. Yeah.
Right. So just because you're physically incapable. By the way, I'm also physically incapable of flying. I can't fly either. But just
Speak for
because you can't
yourselves.
fly doesn't mean that you don't have free will. Right? You have free will to what in the capacity that you're able to do something. It's the same way with God. It's logically contradictory for him to not exist because then he wouldn't be God anymore. Or for him to make a square circle, things that are logically impossible. God has the ability to do things that are logically possible, right? So that's why your argument doesn't work.
So God could not, in a hypothetical world, create a world where all the laws of physics are totally different and all that stuff,
Not the
or
laws of
logic and
physics.
all that stuff.
The laws of logic are different. No, laws of logic cannot be different.
So he can't have, like, hypothetically his new laws that, like, logic is totally different and all that stuff.
No, in every possible world, logic would be the same that it is here. You can't have two things exist and not exist at the same time.
But couldn't, like, in a
In the
hypothetical
same
dream
sense,
world
because
that I invent, God would allow that?
No, that's an impossibility.
Why?
Because in order for you to tell the difference between the dream world and the real world, you're using the laws of logic.
True, but then you can say that the laws of logic in that dream world are different or something. But you could
They
still
can't
find
be.
out the logic.
They can't be. Let's just suppose God created another universe. If he were to sit there and say there's a difference between this universe and another universe, he's already using the laws of logic. You can't run away from the laws of logic. It's the way it is. In regards to the laws of physics that you brought up, the laws of physics are contingent, so those can change very clearly. But logical laws can't.
What does contingent mean? Sorry,
It's
I need to learn
dependent.
this.
It's dependent on something else.
Okay, and logic. What does that mean? Logic.
Well, it would be like the rules of logic, the rules of thinking.
you
Which
really
are?
gotta read some philosophy and logic, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like there's probably subjective views on I mean, logic is involved in science. They use that in science. Religion
I
is
hope
all
so.
subjective. So
No, the laws of
I
logic
mean,
are not subjective.
you don't have to. You can use the laws of logic for science. That works. But when you go to religion, it's all subjective. So there you go. It's all different.
Yeah, but
Do you
the
agree
laws
with
of
me that
logic are
it's
not subjective, even in religion. Can you name one of the three main laws of logic?
I actually don't know. Sorry.
So how do you know then, if you don't know these laws of logic, these three main ones, how can you say that religions don't use one of these laws of logic, or that logic can be different? How can you say these things if you can't even define what it is?
Well, I didn't study philosophy, but I'm just saying, like, do you agree that if you were to look for the truth, there can only be one truth in logic terms?
There can only be one truth. There can be more than one truth,
Yeah.
logically.
No, there can only be one truth.
Well, 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's one truth. 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's another truth. That's two truths right there.
No, that's what you call contradictory or something.
How's that a contradiction?
That's a contradictory, dude.
Sorry, I
My
don't
name
know
is
words.
Carl
But
James
I'm just
John.
saying.
That's the two other truths. What is truth?
That's a good question.
There was this Muslim guy I was talking to. He's saying you can only have one true religion because you can't have all the religions to be true because it wouldn't be logical or something. Which I agree with him. So you're saying that
Sure,
Christianity has
but
to
we
be
need to
true?
find out what truth is. We need to find out what truth is before we can answer that question.
Yeah, and how do you find that out? They're all like confusing. They all say they're true, and then that's why
What does
wars
it
happen
mean
and
when
stuff.
you say something is true?
Well, in truth, in science would be like, scientific method and laws, logic stuff, and facts and stuff like that. But in religion, it's all
Yeah,
faith,
but
belief,
before
and all that.
no, but before you do anything scientific, there's you do philosophy first. So we have to
Not
define
sure
it.
about that. What's the philosophy in
I
science?
mean, well, there's a bunch of presuppositions that scientists hold to, and they're rational to hold to those things. For example, the future will be like the past, or that laws of logic are true, or mathematics, is the same. Like 1 + 1 = 2 is not going to be 5 in the future. Or the speed of light is the one-way speed of light is a constant. Those are things you cannot prove. Those are things that you presuppose. Also, truth. They make truth statements, so there's epistemology there, there's ontology there. They use 3 of the branches of philosophy. You do philosophy first. There's a guy, his name is Thomas Kuhn. I don't remember exactly when he was alive, but he was a philosophy of I forget what the field's called, philosophy of science, I think it is. Scientists do philosophy. A lot of the things that scientists tell you is based on their worldview. They interpret the facts for you. They don't just give you data. The data doesn't say anything. The data tells you, it's a measurement. It's numbers. It doesn't tell you anything. They interpret that data, and then you listen to them and you believe what they tell you. You take it on faith. You have confidence in them. You have faith in them.
Yeah, but you understand there's a lot of religious beliefs that are scientific people would say is not true.
Right, because based on their worldview, they would do philosophy to say that it's not true.
Well, no, they use scientific method, logic, and all that stuff.
Well, can you give me one example?
Well, the main one for me would be the flood, Noah's Ark, all the miracles. What else? There's loads in religion that can be disproven using logic and science and all that. And there's also scholarship that disproves it. Well, Noah's Ark is the best one, the flood and all that. Oh yeah, and Adam and Eve.
Yeah, but how do you disprove
And like
that?
the Earth being like 6,000 years old or something.
Okay. Hang on. Sean, whenever you're gonna have these conversations, just some advice from me to you would be, pick one and be knowledgeable in that one, and don't just name them, because right when you name them and somebody responds to you, and then your following response is another thing that you disagree with, that's not an argument. At that point, you're just making statements. So you go, there's no evidence for the flood, and then somebody gives you some evidence for a global flood, and you never give a rebuttal or a response to their evidence, and you just jump onto Adam and Eve or Moses or whomever your favorite thing is, then you haven't said anything. You really haven't made any points. All you've said is there's a bunch of stuff you don't like, and that's about it. So my recommendation would be to actually develop your knowledge on the subject, like have more information at your disposal, rather than saying, well, scientists don't do this and that. That's not even a true statement.
No, I have science to talk about the flood and Noah's Ark.
But you realize there's scientists that do.
Yeah, but they're a minority, and there's
It
there's a lot of
doesn't
crack
matter whether
scientists,
they're a
there's a lot of
majority or
fake
not.
scientists,
You realize that.
pseudoscience and all
Well,
that.
hang on. It doesn't matter whether they're a majority or not, or a minority. You realize that a
Yeah, I
minority of
understand that.
scientists, at one point or another, a minority of scientists believe what the majority of scientists believe now.
Yes, I
So,
understand that. I'm just saying that Noah's Ark can be disproven scientifically, and I'd say a majority of scientists don't believe in Noah's Ark, and
that doesn't mean
because
much. That's not an argument.
well, if
That's
you were to
actually a
debate
fallacy.
Teedum,
That's
I don't even know
actually
what
a
a fallacy
fallacy.
is.
It's
Sorry.
called the fallacy of appealing to the populace, to the many.
Yeah, you're wrong. Yeah, you're right with that. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that I trust my faith. I have more belief in science and trust in science
Thank you.
than in religion, because a
And
lot
you
of
have no reason
religious
for
belief.
it. And you have no reason for it because you have no guarantee that those scientists aren't lying to you.
Yeah, there's scientists that lie for religion, and then there's scientists that lie for other beliefs as well.
Yeah, I'm
So you
just
can
saying.
use science for different beliefs, but if you want to find the truth, it's hard. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's what skepticism and all that is all about.
At this point, I have to go. I do.
All right.
I gotta. We've been on for 2 hours and 36 minutes, so.
All right, I'll see you.
All right,
Nice
that
conversation.
was great.
Thank you.
John, if you were Armenian, we would say Demkis.
Translated,
hell does that mean?
Translated would be your face. The best
That's a bad
translation
word.
into English would be some. No, it's not a bad word. It's a good thing. It's kind of a funny thing. It's like you're a character. You're.
Oh, your face. Oh, yeah.
But we like to be very descriptive in our comments as Armenians.
Interesting, funny.
Your
all right.
face.
It sounds bad, but it's actually good.
It's not. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad
Yeah.
thing. Trust me, dude.
I know, but it's funny. It's how do you say fuck, I have no vocabulary. It's a bad thing, but it actually means good. It's like how do you say it?
It's a bad thing. That means like I don't know. Like in the 90s, they used to say, "Man, that's stupid."
It means good, actually.
Yeah.
What's that word you describe that? What's that word you describe that?
Oh, what's the like literary device for that? Oh, I don't know. What is it?
Sorry.
It's literally face. Like you are a face.
All right.
Sean
Sorry, I was trying to say.
Keanu said Sean has more faith than Frank Turek because he has enough faith to be an atheist, and Frank Turek doesn't.
Well, I'm not fully 100%, but yeah, I'll be like, you can't be 100% in anything.
But Sean, seriously, when you get time, read some philosophy, read some logic. I think it would really change the way you think.
I agree. My recommended book on logic would be a book written by a guy named Peter Kreeft or Peter Kreft. It's called Socratic Logic. It would be transformative and life-changing. I guarantee it. To anyone. As someone who studied philosophy and then read that book and then taught through it, it was transformative to me. And I already had a degree in philosophy. So.
Peter Kreeft.
Yeah, it's Kreeft.
Socratic Logic.
All right.
He's probably got like Irish heritage.
All right.
Okay.
Nice.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for calling me, man.
Bye.
And guys on Discord, thanks. See you guys.
Bye.
Well, folks, again, appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging in there and hanging out with us. Just be paying attention to when things, are changing. Things are changing in regards to this channel. When I'm going to go live and all that stuff, pay attention to it. If you haven't gone into the community tab, do so. Go into the community tab. I today shared a video from Truth Unites. Gavin Ortland has a really, really good video on the Reformation and why the Reformation was necessary. Today is Reformation Day. So I thought that would be fitting to share that video. I liked it. It was very informative to me. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. And with all that said, God bless you guys. And I will see you sometime tomorrow, most likely earlier in the day than later. Take care.